I absolutely wanted to go to Asia for some work experience. So I think I've sent 500 letters in those days. 500. We were talking about letters, okay? Emails didn't exist, so you wrote, emails started to exist. It's not so long ago. What you get as a consultant, that's my Swiss Army knife. It's universal problem-solving capability. Universal problem-solving capability. If someone's ready to join a consulting firm, knowing that this will be a bit a tough job in the beginning, it's normally people who want to not see their limits, because ideally there is no limit, but who really want to do something a bit special. So extra motivation, extra engagement, extra commitment. Our whole business has moved from client centricity to employee centricity, people centricity. One of your key due diligence jobs in the first 2 or 3 years should be to find out what environment matches best to what you are looking for. We are not looking for people who are looking for a job. There's thousands of people who are looking for a job. We in our firm look for people who look for a mission.
Dear students, welcome to the CEO Leadership Series. My name is Chang Wang Li, and it is a gigantic pleasure for me to present to you the Global Managing Director of Roland Berger. Roland Berger is one of the world's leading strategy consulting firms. It is also one of the largest and most prestigious consulting firm in the world, with over 3,000 employees and more than 50 offices worldwide. Actually, it is arguably the largest and most prestigious strategy and consulting firm in the world that is based outside of the United States. Markus Berret has been Global Managing Director since 2020. He's one of the most influential consultants in Europe, and to some extent has a reputation as a living legend at Roland Berger and outside, and especially in the global automotive practice of the company, which I know from personal experience, so I'm speaking here from personal experience. Markus Berret studied business administration at the University of Hohenheim in Stuttgart and also in Paris. He joined Roland Berger in the late 1990s and quickly took on bigger and bigger roles. For example, as the global head of their supplier business within the automotive sector. He became partner of the firm and then took on the role as global head of the entire Automotive Competence Center, the entire automotive business of Roland Berger. He was then a member of the supervisory board of the company and became head of the supervisory board and chairman of the entire Roland Berger company. After several years as chairman of Roland Berger, he stepped down from that role to become global managing director of the company and also the global head of the industrial business. Now, it is a gigantic pleasure for me to welcome Markus Berret here to our campus for two main reasons. First, I have fond memories of my time at the company, so I would like you to become even more familiar with Roland Berger and perhaps consider it as one of your future employers. And second, I have fond memories of my students here and hopefully ongoing experiences and memories and of this campus and university. And I want you, Markus, and also Roland Berger to become familiar with them. So please do me proud. Please meet or exceed expectations today, and please help me and very warmly welcome Markus Berret.
Thank you.
All right, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Big pleasure, and very proud to be here today. Thank you.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here, Markus. Let's start from the beginning. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your childhood and youth?
Of course. Actually, not so far away from here. So I grew up southern part of Germany, close to a city called Pforzheim, which maybe some of you know. Sorry. I feel a bit like Biene Meier. I hope you can hear me well. Grew up in actually in a flower shop. So maybe when we talk more details later on, this will still play a bit of role. Whoever of my junior consultants told me that, wow, this is tough work. Are you not getting tired? I would tell them, you have no clue how my father worked. No? This was much tougher. I grew up with a very concrete link to business, to life, how the cent, how the euro is being earned, and still benefiting from that experience. Actually, grew up in a family of 5, so 2 sisters plus my parents, which provided me a sound, let's say, base education, social competence, and was good.
All right.
Yeah.
What about your school years? I mean, what were your favorite subjects at that time? I mean, were you already thinking about, studying and then becoming a consultant early on?
Absolutely not. So to be frank, the consulting journey only started later. And during the first years, the key idea was always that I'm gonna take over the shop of my parents. That was my track. But at a certain point, and I still thank them today that there was zero pressure involved. I could choose what I did, what I wanted to do. So, but in the beginning, zero idea about consulting.
Right.
To be frank, when I started university, consulting in those days was a bit theoretical concept, and not very much known.
All right. And you studied business administration with the goal at first to take over the shop of your parents?
No. At that point, when I entered university, it was clear that I will not come back. So they accepted that. No worries. They had both been forced by their parents, basically into their jobs, so no choice. And they had a clear idea that they will not copy paste to their kids. So there was no discussion. At the moment when I left the university, it was clear that I'm gonna be at a very different track.
Okay, so let's take one short step back. So why did you study business administration then? And would you have done anything different during your studies, given that we have many young students here? Yeah.
Good point. A lot of things. Why business? I understood that most of you are on the same track, right? Business administration, kind of. Yeah. Why that? Very frank. Because I didn't have any better idea. And I think that's a concept which speaks to some of you. No, I had the idea of working in industry. I mean, southern part of Germany, which you're part of here too. And you know that the automotive industry is playing a very big role here. 30 years ago, this was even much more the case. So my basic idea was to be part of management in an automotive firm, and as part of that, I thought it's a good start to study business.
Okay, and you were a hard-working student, always industrious, always at the lectures, or did it pick up later on?
Honest answer?
Yes.
Again? So I was a pretty lazy student at school.
Okay.
Everything worked fine. I never had to work. I went in the morning to the lessons, and I got surprised by which exams to write and so on. So it was a cool phase. But then during the studies, it kind of kicked a bit in. You know, the peer pressure, or not peer pressure, the peer competition provided real fun. And I started basically from the second year of university. I started to have real motivation to forge my CV, my story. And then this led me to a pretty good finishing of the studies, and this in the end was the basis of everything, because Also today, when I look at CVs of people applying for a job, you want to see a certain development. And to be frank, the results with which you finish university, of course, lays a certain foundation. I'm not telling any news here, so I'm sure I will not shock anybody.
All right.
Yeah.
And what happened after university?
Well, actually, for me, the whole story started during university because I was starting to do internships. And one of my first internships, I think your question before was on was the idea of consulting already in, and I said no. So when I looked for my first internship, I took a gelbe Seitenbuch, something none of you knows. Yeah? But in those days there was no internet, so you basically had a telephone book thick like that in a city like Stuttgart. I had no clue. I thought consulting sounds cool. I took the list and I sent letters to 8 or 9 consulting firms. I ended up with an internship, and I really loved that job profile.
Right.
Really loved that job profile. Maybe we can talk later about it.
Right.
And then I basically tuned the entire remaining part of my studies, including the internships. I tuned a bit to the point that I thought it would be a good entry into consulting.
All right. Well, let's talk about it immediately. So what part of the consulting profile did you like or did you love, and how did you tune it then to the consulting?
To start with your latter one, I mean, in those days, it was not so common that you go abroad. It was the phase where it started. For you guys, that's total normal engineering of your education, that you spend parts abroad in environments where you have less control, less experience, and you're forced. You're put on your own feet. So going abroad for studies, doing an internship abroad. Asia was at that part kind of taking off in global relevance, so I absolutely wanted to go to Asia for some work experience. So I think I've sent 500 letters.
Wow.
In those days. 500. We were talking about letters, okay? Emails didn't exist, so you wrote. Emails started to exist. It's not so long ago, but you wrote letters with a printer signing, and then I sent 500 letters to Asian companies trying to get an internship, and eventually I got one.
Okay.
So I was trying to build my way with a lot of international experience. That was the second part of your question. What thrilled me? Very honestly, were the people and the global aspiration they were working with. And very quickly I had the feeling, and by the way, I have the same feeling today. Very quickly I had the feeling that this is exactly what I'm looking for. Because this is about, I mean, in consulting, you know all these consultant jokes of consultants basically not knowing anything and just asking for the time in order to tell you with the watch of the client what time it is and all that stuff. So, but what you get as a consultant, that's my Swiss Army knife. It's universal problem-solving capability. Universal problem-solving capability. And you get that by design because every day you're confronted with a new problem. And the only way you're paid is for a good solution on that. So you're not paid for redundant, routine work. You're just paid to solve a certain problem. And that brings you in a mode of problem solving, which gives you over the years the self-confidence that I'm always joking to the younger people, whatever problem you parachute me, I gonna find a solution. At least I gonna find a good way of structuring my analytical point to where I come to a conclusion, and to pull in the right people in order to get the conclusion. So don't want to get too long, but for me that was the main kick of that job.
All right. We probably will have a question from the students on that, and I'm going to talk about that in a while. So let's get back to your kind of track record, your own track record. Can you maybe disclose what company it was in Asia? And you said internship in consulting. Was it with Roland Berger during your studies, or?
Well, the first one, yes. Then I did what I thought I should really do, which was to do an internship at Mercedes-Benz. Where I immediately found out, okay, corporate world is nothing for me. And then it was a small, very entrepreneurial company focused on professional services in Tokyo, actually, which was courageous enough to give a chance to a young guy. And I had I had the best time of my life during 1 year because I spent the first half year in Paris, where if you were walking through the street and the traffic light turns red, and you stop there without cars rushing along, which is kind of the normal German attitude, you stop at the red light. All the people would look at you like you're total crazy if you stand. And then 1 week after, half a year Japan, same crossing. If you even think about one of your body parts moves, despite the fact that the traffic light, okay, is red, but no car, nowhere, ever. And if you even start thinking about moving one of your legs, you are excluded from society. So to see probably the most two extremes you can have in social systems or in societies within 1 year. That was the year which really made me curious and also confident that whatever society you're in, you're going to manage.
All right. Was that toward the end of your studies? So was that towards the end?
No, that was that was after what we then called diploma.
Okay.
Was after 3 years of study.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at some point you completed your studies. So what came afterwards?
Well, then I thought, now let me check out consulting firms. I did a broadband, like many of you, looked into 7, 8 other firms based on interviews. But then I actively decided, actually for the team I was working with during the internship, because the match was the best one.
Okay, all right. Can you maybe, without disclosing the name, tell us a little bit about your first project as a consultant?
As a junior consultant?
Yeah, or your first year?
Was totally thrilling. I was involved in that project, so spending in my first year, basically spending 6 months in Detroit, not so much at home, which my girlfriend, I prepared her for quite a bad lifestyle in the first years, but that was already a tough start, wonderful start for me, but a tough start.
All right. And so what did you do then, especially as an entry-level junior consultant? Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your job back then?
Should I really do?
Yes, please.
I'm making the joke because basically I did during a month what you today you do within an hour.
Okay.
And that was getting some data about which clients, Daimler, Chrysler, so we are talking about 7 or 8 car brands, and there was no good data about which car, which customer group is driving what kind of car. So I was standing on crossroads, looking when the traffic light turns red, and I was looking into doing my statistics on which customer types in Detroit, in Europe, would go for which brands. That was one of the inputs into the project we were doing. And to be frank, a big amount of the things you have been doing as a junior consultant is something which is total waste today, because you simply click on the internet, you do your research. Now today, even with AI, if I look what in our knowledge hub, that's how we call our AI tool, if you use that, it's totally shocking what speed of efficiency gains we have been creating in our own work. So I'm not totally proud. It was a good experience. From today's perspective, it would have been a bit inefficient. But it eventually took us to a result there.
Got it, all right. As I mentioned before, I mean, Markus has, a living legend type of reputation, certainly within the Automotive Competence Center. So you quickly rose through the ranks, became a partner. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the highlights during that process? And also, do you have advice for our students here? What would make a good consultant?
A good consultant. Okay. I think the key highlights in my first years was that I was spending 6 or 7 years abroad. So working in Detroit, working in Paris, working in those days in Shanghai, because the automotive industry was kind of ramping up in China, working again in Tokyo. And each project with very international teams, a bit what I shared with you earlier on Paris versus Tokyo, this total things which you believe is a hard fact, and in a different culture, it's the opposite is the hard fact. Yeah? So to see how relative things are, for me in the first couple of years was one of the most striking experiences, and then I quickly tried to find my own model. Part of that model was to make sure that the best people around me were supposed to work with me. That was my ambition. That you create an environment where the best people around you want to work for you, because that gives you the best leverage. Because then, if you turn project manager, your projects will be the best ones, because the best people have been working on that. And why? Because they have the feeling that that's the best way to spend their time, because you invest in them. You give recognition by giving feedback, by daily polishing, by daily shaping. Daily, that's the ambition. Each day, get a bit better. So I quickly learned that lesson, that the best people are supposed to work with you.
All right, very interesting. Can you be a bit more specific? So is it relationship building? Is it coaching? Is it spending time with people? Is it taking a certain perspective? Or what do you mean by that?
Shaping. I mean, in consulting, you have an incredible benefit and luxury, which is basically everyone joining a consulting firm. And there are many firms like that, yeah. And also other industries. But basically, if someone's ready to join a consulting firm, knowing that this will be a bit a tough job in the beginning, it's normally people who want to not see their limits, because ideally there is no limit, but who really want to do something a bit special. So extra motivation, extra engagement, extra commitment. And that's a pure luxury to be surrounded by people exactly in that spirit. And the attitude I was trying to provide to all of them was each day, as I just said, each day a bit better. Each day you have an environment where around you some people make mistakes, something goes perfect, something doesn't go perfect. So each mistake that is happening around you is a learning mistake. Absorb it, look at it, and avoid it, or do it better. And with that attitude, and asking each evening, or at least weekend, what did I learn? Where did I get better? Which mistake would I not repeat? Which mistake I've seen those are the best mistakes, by the way. If somebody else is doing the mistake for you, and you take a free learning, you don't have to get the pain for doing the mistake, but you just take the learning, and you build this into your model. I think that's how you create an atmosphere where skilled people want to be close to you.
All right. You quickly rose through the ranks as an entry-level consultant, then project leader, and so on, and then becoming partner. So can you maybe tell us how the job profile changes from step to step?
Yeah, that's a real challenge. So as a consultant, you basically know what you're supposed during the day. You get your tasks, maybe for the week. You are in total control of the quality you are delivering, and you can get satisfaction by just delivering a good job. And then as you grow, you have to take the responsibility, and that's tough. You have to take the responsibility for other people's jobs and results. If you're a senior consultant, you're going to steer 2 or 3 analysts, junior consultants, and you're going to be judged yourself not only based on the quality of work you're delivering, but on the quality of the work your small team is delivering, and it's a total game changer. Because this can go bad. This can go very wrong. If you trust maybe too much into a certain situation or person, if you don't trust enough in a certain situation and person, it is very easy that your whole team is working for the recycle bin for the entire week, and you only realize on Friday evening that you have a problem. So to tune that, to create an environment where everybody has freedom, but still you can put your own fingers on the block or your hand in the fire, that the result is matching quality expectations. That's a tough journey. Then you turn, which is probably the most fun space in a consulting firm is when you turn project manager. That's not just a promotion, but it's a total change in role, because then you are managing a mission. Versus before you get your little tasks, but then you manage a mission, which means client expectations, expectations of your team, expectations of the partners who sold the project, and maybe don't recognize what you're developing out of the project. But tons of other stakeholders, like the internal service functions who are supporting you with research, with IT, and so on. And it also gets a bit more challenging with managing home. Today, anyhow, a very much different topic, because this is getting much more fluid, which I think is good, but is providing to you guys some additional challenges. So that's the starting point, actually, of how should I call it? A permanent balancing of expectations and constraints and making the best out of that situation. So that's the job of a PM. And then you turn, principal partner, don't want to bore you with those titles, but basically you go from the production side of things to the sales side, because you're in charge of acquiring projects and having relationships to clients who trust you for normally complicated projects. And you're engaged in a total different set of activities, relationship building, getting a trusted advisor. So the job profile within those first 10 years, I would say, of being a consultant is totally changing.
Mm-hmm. What about the roles of, for example, head of the Global Automotive Center? Competence Center or the automotive business of Roland Berger? That must be more than quote unquote just being a partner.
Yes, then the next level you can basically get or make in such a firm is to manage a unit, manage a team, a bigger team, manage a country, and manage one of the practices. And I hope you hear me well, or it's too noisy. Okay. And then the job profile changes totally again, because again, as a partner, normally you're only getting to the next level if you're a high-performing partner. As a high-performing partner, you're in charge of your business, your mission, and then suddenly you're getting in charge of a unit later on at a certain stage, maybe of the firm, and you're in charge of everything, which includes being in charge of the teams which are maybe not perfectly working. And that's the point where you more or less, you get a coach. And you need to get an understanding for the capability of individuals, where they best can learn to fly, how they can improve, how you... And that's, my team now is a team of basically 300 partners and their employees below, or 400 partners. And each individual partner has a different set of strengths and weaknesses, or profile, let's put it that way. Different comfort zone, different private situation and environment which you need to take into account, and to tune that in order to get the best out of your team. That's the real kick. That's a passion, and I often compare it a bit to a football coach, where you can have the same individuals, but you compose them a bit in a different way. You motivate them in a different way, and the same team performs versus the same individuals, but in a different constellation doesn't perform. So that's the real kick.
Oh, okay. Looking at your steep climb, and I mentioned this before, I always wondered, have you faced any major challenges during your careers? What were some of the major challenges that you perhaps also learned from, except for me leaving the company, of course? That must have been really hard for you.
That was a very hard moment, right. but you wanted it that way. So, right. and you made your way as well. So, challenges every day, every week. Probably my toughest crackdown today, you would call it. Today you would call it a burnout. In those days, we didn't know what burnout was, but in fact it was one. After a very tough project in Japan with a lot of intensity. A very stubborn client, and very, very few time at home. So when I came back, my girlfriend was gone. She's today my wife. So everything worked out well. But when I came back, she was gone. And not only this, but also the working style. If you're not resistant enough in a Japanese environment, that the working style the Japanese environment forces you into, which is extreme. And you get into some trouble or some challenges on the projects. And you don't have the right coach around you. I was a project manager in those days, and my mentor was back in Germany with no feeling for how I was feeling. And after 3 months, I would say burnout. Where I thought, okay, so I was, during all those years, I was always waiting a bit for the moment where this nuclear reactor, okay, maybe we're going to talk about that one later, this power engine which pushes you to take each new challenge, get up in the morning and do your best during the entire day, when this energy reserve would run out. And that was the moment.
Wow, all right.
It was run out, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your openness and this candid story. How did you recover, though?
Well, I think I pretty radically changed life. What was the main lever? I think for me there's a bit before and it's after. Yeah? So young PM, that was maybe after year 6 or year 5 or 6 in the job. So before, I always wanted to do things right for everyone around me. I think after, I had much more self-confidence, or that was my idea how to overcome this situation. That whatever I do is gonna be fine. I give my best. And if that's not enough for a certain situation, then it's out of my control. So I'm not to be blamed. I'm not in charge of that. I do my best. Everybody can rely on, and that led me to a stronger separation of job and private life, with a clearer cut, I know today you partly have different attitudes to that, but the early days of consulting, my early days as consulting, people saw it as an extra kick to see how many hours they can work. So there was a strong input orientation in the whole system. And just to give you feelings, in my first 2, 3, 4 weeks, 2, 3, 4 years, the amount of work per week normally would be close to 100, 90, 95, 100. There are more weeks with 100 or plus rather than less weeks.
Hours. He's talking about hours.
Sorry, weeks. Stupid. Hours per week. Okay, hours per week. I pretty significantly changed that from that moment because I felt the battery was empty.
Okay. What are the working hours nowadays for a consultant? And maybe in addition to that, I mean, do you have any advice, whether as a consultant or in other, high-powered roles, about work-life balance? I mean, how do you keep a private life, family, and so on?
This drastically changed. So our whole business has moved from client centricity to employee centricity, people centricity. There's no bottleneck on clients. There's tons of clients out there. There's tons of work out there, tons of projects. Our speed of growth, which is normally 15% per year, is only limited by the amount of good people who do perfect solutions for the problems of our clients. So that's the constraint. And therefore you have to adjust as a firm and find a model which is much more compatible with what I would call a normal life. And therefore today we are the whole industry, and we put a specific focus on that. Basically, has changed towards a 5 times 10 hours scheme. And I'm convinced that while I'm still in this industry, we will see that consulting firms make kind of 8-hour commitments, 8-hour work time commitments, which in return, of course, requires that this time, because our business model only works if clients pay good money for good value in solving their problems, and this only works if the 8 hours, or let's say 10 hours today, are done with perfect efficiency and perfect focus on spending your energy on the right activities.
Mm-hmm. What about all the traveling, which can be quite fun, as I say, from personal experience? At the same time, though, you probably then, in terms of, quote-unquote work-life balance, would you suggest keeping the weekends completely free from work, keeping kind of your mental state completely private things, or how should people manage it?
No, for me that was an intermediate step to basically say weekend gone, weekend work gone. Okay, weekend work gone, because before that was always part of the solution. Weekend work gone. That was part of my, let's say, getting back on track after my battery was empty. Now, probably Corona, and I feel a bit bad saying that, but probably Corona was the best thing that could happen to my life.
Okay.
And I'm saying it's hard to say that because a lot of people incredibly suffered from that, but this resulted in a pretty drastic change of lifestyle in a consultant's daily or weekly life, especially in a decentralized country like this one. You need to understand that consulting is a total different show in a decentralized country like US, China, Germany, Mideast, versus a centralized country like UK, Paris, even Japan, I would say, because in those countries it means that you stay 5 days a week in one city. That's where you live, that's where you work, that's where all your colleagues are, that's where your whole family is. In a decentralized structure, it's pure coincidence if you work the week in the city where you live. That has some charming elements because you really get around. You see a lot of different situations, but for private life, that's stress. And this totally changed with COVID, let's say post-COVID working style, which is much more fluid, much more digital, much easier to combine normal family life, and this is not an advertising statement, much easier to combine normal family life, and that includes kids, yeah, in order to combine that. In the days before, in a decentralized structure, very often when kids came into the game, it starts to get a real challenge because you're away 5 days a week. How should you be a good father or a good mother if you're away 5 days a week? But that has quite drastically changed.
Okay, all right. You alluded to the company Roland Berger a few times, so maybe let's switch gears for a bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what Roland Berger is all about as a company and why it could be quite an attractive employer for perhaps some of our wonderful students here?
Okay, now comes the advertising part. I start with the job as a consultant, and we already talked a bit about, and that's something all of you need to make their mind up whether that's a job profile which you like. High intensity, not getting involved with routine tasks, but just problem solutions. You're only called in for problems. every week kind of a new environment, or every month kind of a new environment, new situation to adjust to, new team members, only surrounded by people who want to test their limit and are ambitious. So that's on the positive side. On the challenging side, of course, that it's some of the points we mentioned. Not always so easy to combine, and you have to give a bit more. First question, and then the second question. There's many consulting firms out there, and all great firms. For me, this is not a question of better or worse. It's just a question, and I realized that pretty late. But maybe that's one point for all of you, that different environments offer different profiles to you, and one of your key due diligence jobs in the first 2 or 3 years should be to find out what environment matches best to what you are looking for. Because only if that clicks, you're gonna see an exponential development of the energy you're putting into your career. If the foundations are not clicking, you can invest tons of energy, but it will not really take off. So part of the idea of internships, of course, is to get a feeling, and talking to people is to get a feeling for the profiles of those different firms. So our profile, as said, the only non-US headquartered, that has a different meaning for how we look at, okay, you could say Europe is a mess. But I love the mess. It's a mixture of very, very high level of diversity compared to a more streamlined, top-down, a bit more brainstormed US environment. So I prefer a bit the messy and more diverse part with more intellectual challenges. We focus on getting things done. So we of course, we create slides. That's kind of the base currency each consultant has to master. Of course, we create slides, but our real added value is to solve a solution. And a slide at a certain point is part of that journey. So our job is not to parachute brilliant documents on the tables of the boards. Our job is to help them to bridge the gap between the boardroom and the machine room in the firm and get things done, make their organization better. So that's how we position, with a very nice track record. Past 4 years, doubled in size, as said, probably the most dynamic and fast growing. Some of our Anglo-Saxon competitors are pretty much covered everywhere. We have still a lot of white space, and therefore can maintain this growth pace for the next years, even in a market environment which is, well, changing a bit these days.
All right. Now, if we've enticed some of the students, and I'm sure we have, to kind of apply, do you have any advice for them, during the interview phase, for their application documents and so on? I remember I interviewed, so the interview process, a typical assessment center and so on. One of my last interviews was with you. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was in the Munich office, I think, at that time. So.
I remember.
Right.
And I need to tell you and share with you another story, because not on you, definitely. No, my own one. I'm only trying to learn from my stuff. Yeah. No, because as I said, I did an internship, so I got in touch with some of the people who have run these assessment centers. And without those relationships, and I've seen my application file afterwards, and my performance on the assessment center day, I would have failed. Okay, I would not have passed that day. But I got some hints which helped me to succeed. So from that day, I have a mixed emotion and mixed feelings of the validity of those selection processes. But of course, in a certain way, you need to select the people for that profession. Ratio will not be new to you in that profession. Normally, I don't know, 1 to 100, 1 to 500, a bit depending on the phase and depending on the sector you are applying. And I would just encourage you to try to demonstrate what is your passion. Actually, we are not looking for people who are looking for a job. There's thousands of people who are looking for a job. We, in our firm, look for people who look for a mission, who want to build something. For me, the next best alternative to what I'm doing would probably, in the end, not have been a corporate career, but rather doing my startup stuff, raising a firm, creating something, and I think we are looking for people where you already can feel this in early days. So people who want a mission. That would be my key advice.
All right.
And besides that, but you're in the middle of doing so, shape your story, shape your. I'm not saying CV, but shape the story you have to tell, which is supposed to prepare you for that mission. And you're in a much better situation to do that than we were, because, I mean, in such an environment here, with sessions like this one, not because we run it, but you listening to people who can share learnings, where you maybe save some time in not redoing the same mistakes. That's cool formats. So yeah, prepare your story.
All right. Thank you for the advice. Let's take a quick perspective outside of your own story and Roland Berger's story, and maybe at some of the industries that you're very familiar with. I think there aren't many people in Europe or elsewhere who are that familiar with the automotive sector worldwide. What can we expect next in the coming years? You know, a lot of things are happening, electric vehicles, autonomous driving, and so on. What's your perspective of the automobile sector?
Well, globally, it's probably the most fascinating phase we are in, with a total reinvention of not only technology but also the way cars are used. Just to give you one reference case, when I entered this profession, the junior consultants were mad about the date on when you could order your own company car. That was a magical moment. You filled in the formula, the sheet, and you got your company car. 100% of people who entered the firm in those days ordered their own car. Today, 20%. So out of the junior consultant classes we are getting from the universities, 20% would want their own lease car. Everyone else is looking for other methods and tools of mobility. So that's providing quite a challenge to the whole industry. At the moment, we're in probably the perfect storm for the automotive industry, because let's say regulators pushed the whole system to adjust to electric vehicles because of emissions, and of course, no debate. That's exactly the only right thing to do. Now, basically, a lot of companies have pumped dozens of billions into, and you know that money doesn't fall from heaven. If you're a firm, your key job as a CEO in one of those firms, your key job, okay, two. One is get the right talents. Second key job is capital allocation. That's basically everything you do. So you need to put your bets. Where do I allocate what amount of capital? On which idea? On which business unit? And a lot of basically all classical car companies had no other choice than putting their money on EV. And now we're in a phase where these cars are actually there, but the customers don't fully want them mainly because of price. So the cars are by design more expensive. And as a stupid result, regulators start to push back, which would end up in a total disaster. So that's one element of the challenge. At the same time, we have the entire digital transformation of the car industry, where cars turn into smartphones on wheels. Let's put it that way. And that has, in total, both of these effects have led the entry hurdles for new joiners to collapse. And that's why we have around 100 new companies producing cars. None of them profitable, basically, with the exception of Tesla, but all funded with investment and partly state money in China, with a lot of state money. And that leads to a point where the whole industry is trying to find a new equilibrium. In this whole thing, not so many news, to be frank, not so many good news for the European or German industry. And that's part of the structural struggles the whole economy is currently in order to adjust to a new normal for the automotive industry.
Mm-hmm. What's your perspective on the economic situation in general, the industrial landscape in Germany, and also maybe in combination with separate from kind of digitalization, artificial intelligence, the implications of that technology?
Wow. So far, this was a nice afternoon. Now comes some of the more frustrating part. No, jokes aside. I think especially in Germany here, we and you will benefit, yeah, because demographics works for you. But from an economic standpoint, we're in the middle of a real big structural crisis. If you, I recently talked to a economic history professor. So the people who go back thousands of years, hundreds of years, and try to understand the patterns of how economies develop. And in recent global history, there has probably not been another case where an economy of a state, talking about Germany, an economy of a state within such a short time frame was exactly attacked on each of the elements which made it strong. So, the German business system, the German economy was centered around a big relevance of industry, so of manufacturing. That's our key competence. When I was traveling around 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and talking to governments in France, in UK, in US, the key topic was always, can you guys help us to get our industry share of GDP back to where you have it? Because Germany is having like 23-25% of GDP is manufacturing. In countries like France, UK, US, that's below 10. So during this whole phase, manufacturing industry has been seen as one reason for the stability of Germany. Why? Because manufacturing industries offer much broader variety of jobs for less educated, less skilled people. that keeps employment at this level pretty high. And what you see in the US, what you see in UK and in France is that exactly those jobs were lost. And as a result, the society drifts apart, and you get all these tensions. So, but the high industrial share is now confronted with a climate change pressure. A service job is easier to adjust for zero carbon than a manufacturing job. Export share, we've been global export champion of the world over decades. We're still today more than 50% of our GDP export related. Then the next export related country on OECD, so the leading economies in the world, today is around 28. So it's a total different game, high export dependency. Now, that was nice when the world globalized, but now the world is on the other track. The amount of free trade interventions is skyrocketing. So that's the next stress test to the system. I could continue. So exactly what made us strong so far is creating a headache now. Politicians don't dare to share because if they do so, they will get out of power, and therefore it feels a bit like the frog on the hot water. And we start to realize step by step, also on a European level, that we really have to speed up. And I think that's a great opportunity for you, because the need for change, the need for entrepreneurial attitude, startup attitude, with a more risk-embracing culture than the old system is providing to you. Yeah? Learning from mistakes, each mistake is a gift if it doesn't kill you. You learn, you do better, as said earlier, and you're going to perform even better. So Germany is under big pressure structurally. Demographics. We need 400,000 successful immigrations per year in order to be able to keep economy stable. We are miles away from that. Yeah, so our whole culture needs to get much more embracing and open in order for people wanting to work here. We could continue for 2 hours. I think a lot of opportunities for all of you in the room here.
All right. Let's move on to a few quick-fire questions. Quick questions. So, can you maybe about yourself? Can you maybe tell us what type of food you like to eat?
Food
or cuisine.
I love Asian food all over the place. Whenever I can, I would go to a good Asian restaurant. Japanese, Chinese, Korean, doesn't matter. Indian. Besides that, I must say I quite significantly adjusted. Probably like, hopefully many of you, but reducing meat by 90% also. So shifted quite significantly. I love Italian food because it's so easy but tasty.
All right.
Asian Italian. Yeah.
Okay. What about music? What type of music do you listen to?
Okay, some of you may be shocked, but I have 3 kids, 2 sons, 20, 18, 19, 17, 1 daughter, 13. And kind of every 4th weekend, I go with my boys into the clubs. So I love Still Today. And whoever does that in Stuttgart, so you will find me in Mika, you will find me in Baranga, you will find me in other places. I every 4th week. I'm not fishing for compliments, but love hip-hop, still today. I love hip-hop, right. I love beat. Sometimes with a strange feeling, you know, because when I went into those clubs and I saw these grandpas 25 years back, I thought, how did this go wrong? Yeah? What did you do in life? Why did you fail so miserably? And today I just love it. I'm still focused on, as I said, second son, 17. So one of my jobs is to make sure he gets in. Yeah, still tricky, but he gets in. And each time I have funny stuff. Normally, when I'm in a club, I'm approached 2-3 times each evening with young people exactly asking themselves the same question. I ask myself, what are you doing here? So I normally say, hey, this is my club, so I'm just making sure you're drinking enough. And during the evening, there's crowds of young people coming. Hey, I've heard this is your club. Can we get your number? Can we get a special lane entrance? So, well, I love hip hop.
Okay, all right. Do you also watch any movies in your free time?
Yeah, basically no special direction, but the movies everyone is watching here. Yeah.
Okay.
I love movies.
Okay, all right. And last question, maybe any books you like to read? Any recommendations you have for us?
Yeah, that's my frustration. I love reading, but this really became a bit a weekend. It's condensed, even holidays thing, because the weeks are too dense. My bottleneck is getting the right input. So I'm trying each week to read a couple of magazines, each day 4 or 5 newspapers. That's where I try to get my input. Of course, we are all getting our inputs permanently over here, but it's a different quality if you read an Economist. I would really recommend you. For me, that's the best publication on earth, at least in this kind of environment. The sharpest analysis, the least words you need in order to say something. So that's the benchmark. I need to read that. I want to read that each week. So the weekends are not offering enough hours. All right. For books.
All right. Markus, please allow me one last question before we hand it over to the students. Now, as I mentioned, you've had a very, very successful career and quite some time ahead of you. But when you someday look back at all that you've achieved and accomplished, what kind of accomplishment, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Legacy. For me, the key satisfaction was, and I'm not yet done, but it was always to build teams, to build a business, and to transfer your own thinkings into something systematic. So that then it gets scalable. And I had reached that point 4 or 5 times. For me, that's the ultimate satisfaction. In combination with, and I think probably here in the room, you guys are much more mission-driven than 2 or 3 decades ago we have been, thinking about all the challenges the world has. As part of that systemic pattern I want to leave in my firm is that everyone reflects and thinks about what we can do together in order to keep this a good place. And we can do a lot because we are much above average networked to people who take decisions. And I see it as my obligations to use those connections to get the right things done. And I think if everybody aims to do the same, we can still turn things around globally. So that's my idea of my legacy.
All right, and we wish you all the best for it. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Falco Meixner. I'm studying business management at the Hochschule Heilbronn. And my question is, you mentioned the most important thing is to gain trust and therefore to have good relations to your employees. So maybe do you have any advices how to gain those special relationships or how to gain this level of trust you need in your business?
So, as you rightly said in your last sentence, that's probably a bit more specific to service firms, like consulting firms. Probably a bit less relevant in a pure industrial big corporation. But I believe this is the key basis for a leader going forward in any job. So credibility, trust, and all those things are just rising in relevance. One key hint I'm always giving to the younger people is that you should only be driven by one thing, and that's what's the best for my team, for my firm. Individual interests play a role, but ideally the individual interests are aligned with the firm's interest, but firm's interest is in the center. And when you see that some people behave different, you explain them. If you see that they still behave different, you still do how it should be done. And if they still do it different, my point is you just continue to behave how you expect the other person to behave. And from a certain point, you will realize that the system is doing what it should be doing and is getting aligned. So to very credibly not use the ego game, I think is the basis for gaining trust. Was too abstract or was clear? Okay.
Hi, so my name is Alexander. I'm studying international business in Hochschule Heilbronn, and my question is: you said that Europe needs a lot of young startups and entrepreneurial people, and how can Europe maintain and make these people stay and also invite bright minds from all over the world during the competition, and namely competition with United States of America, which is for many people is the synonym of the word entrepreneurship? Thanks.
Very valid question, and that's a big point in my mind these days. Probably, if you look all over Europe, there's few better places you could be sitting at asking that question. Because many times when I'm outside Heilbronn, discussing exactly about that question, I think what's happening in the city here is a masterpiece of how we should look at this. What you can create with the right attitude and some funds, of course, in relatively short time frame, and even contribute to global champions development. If you think at some of the B2B AI, which is taking place here, I think that's a matter of mindset, which has to come from the bottom. To be very frank, and that's why I'm saying you have a lot of opportunities. At the same time, you have this obligation to change the attitude. Europe is a very, very risk-averse system, became a very risk-averse system, and that we can go back and in social history over the past decades and centuries, and of course we are in the Maslow pyramid. This region is pretty well advanced. And that makes you focused on status quo protection, especially in a situation where things rather go down. So the environment you're growing up here is pretty much focused on status quo protection, which is exactly the opposite what you need in a mistake embracing or learning culture, startup culture. From a political angle, I think the message clearly arrived now that we're going to need a European capital market. That's key for what we discuss here, because each idea you have in the US, you immediately scale over 400 or 500 million people. In Europe, you scale it on 10 or 20, depending on the country you're in. So we need a unified European capital market. The only response to that point is a real unified European approach. If this falls back into small units, just forget about it. Huh? 85% of the top 50 globally leading tech firms are US headquartered. 85. The expectation is with AI, this will get 95. Because AI tends to make the strong players stronger and the weak players weaker because of the meaning of exponential curves. So we really have to accelerate here, putting funds like here, startup culture, entrepreneurial culture, embracing a learning and mistake culture. And step by step, the whole system here is realizing exactly that. But again, I think it's a perfect example of what's happening here.
Hello, my name is Mira Raimold, and my question is: who inspires you the most in your life, and why? And what do you admire about them?
Yeah, very good question. And there's probably, I'm thinking quite a bit about that question during a standard week or month. Each time I'm going through that process, I tend to feel like a dwarfed because there's so many people doing incredibly great things. And you can look for that in sports. I think the people who really fascinate me is mission-driven. So people who have a belief, and of course I'm quoting a very famous name now, but for me that's a source of total inspiration is Nelson Mandela. If you watch movies, if you read the books, if you see what mess such a person has to go through, but you still believe in your ideals. And then so that on the mission-driven part, and on the more competitive side, I think you can take whatever professional sportswoman or man, the ambition, two of my good friends are former national players in football, and the way they live competitiveness, not only in their sports life, but also in by the way, that creates quite a lot of fuck-ups, but that's a separate story. The way they believe in their strength and push it through. So people like Roger Federer or others, I find a total source of inspiration. So we could continue that session probably until tomorrow morning. I think there are hundreds of people to learn from. And maybe that as one advice, you're in a privileged situation that in the jobs you're going to take, you very early on have exposure to a lot of high-ranking people, and there's something to learn from everyone. So maybe besides these total idols like Nelson Mandela, also reflect on your direct environment where you can learn from. But I find it incredible, like some of these people, you know, how can you stand such pressure and then in the end still win?
Hello, my name is Kevin Pide. I'm studying business administration in the master, and my question is, what role does or did sport play in your career? Did it help you to recover from some hard situations?
Good one. Actually, yes. So, especially the past 10, 15 years, you know, in the first years there was not so much place for sports, as I shared with you in terms of workload. Sport became a pretty important element of my life, so I'm doing it each day, each morning or each evening. I didn't do it this morning, so I will do it tonight. I need that as a balance compensation and to have the right body tension. So that plays a very important role for me each day.
What sports do you do?
Okay, consultant. You cannot do something which makes you depend on a studio or something like that, because it can happen. You're in different places. So normally I'm running and doing stuff I can do with my body weight.
All right.
I love push-ups.
All right.
Push-ups. Doing each day. So.
All right.
Hi, my name is
that also helps in the club, by the way. So, sorry, I interrupted you.
Hi, my name is Frank Spangenberg. I'm a founder of the startup Panos AI. Mm-hmm. Imagine that by the time next year we will have provided every company in the world a digital advisor, like a co-pilot, which is able to help the companies to improve their business. You briefly touched the topic of the advances in AI. So what do you think, or what would you say, to which extent will tasks of consultants be replaced by AI in the future?
Also a good one. And a lot of people are very nervous about that one. I'm totally not nervous about that one. If I describe to you what efficiency gains we have seen in our job of wasting time on useless stuff from today's perspective, and now you focus on much more value-adding things. In the end, the key interface we are working at is the analytical conclusion and getting it into motion, getting it into life, which is something you only do with working with people, working on people, helping them to change, to adapt the way they work together. And I believe the demand exactly on that point, with all the great jumps we are seeing in technology, is rather increasing. Yeah, but the job profile is changing. You know, in the early days when I started that job, you had one partner, 10 to 12 consultants doing analytical stuff. Today, you would have one partner, 3-4 consultants. The analytical stuff is taken care of by the machine, and you have a smaller team taking care, making sure that these conclusions are embedded in the operating model and the processes and the organization and the culture of the firm. And I think that part will never go away, rather the opposite. Question clear?
So hello, my name is Nicole. I'm studying business administration in the master's degree, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think, how is it possible to motivate your employees intrinsically, as you talked about that the motivation is most important?
Perfect learning environment. I think that for me that's the key. You need to provide the perfect learning environment, which helps people to shape themselves. There's quite a set of basic principles and tools you can educate your people in. So what I said earlier, that some things get systemic. Everybody works on himself and herself, and I think, especially in a world with, and I know there's a lot of talk about Gen Z and expectations, expectation management on the company side. But I'm totally convinced this is absolutely sustainable if you provide an environment where each individual can get this Swiss Army knife, which I mentioned before, of problem solving and testing the limits, finding out which leadership style and which job profile is suited best to your environment, then I think you're creating the best possible motivation.
So we're mentioning AI. I'm Michael Atanasu from Technical University of Munich. And my question is, you said that advantages from AI are high and the teams of consultants decreased 3 times. And do you think the current educational system is capable of teaching students to perform rather than just go to work? What I mean is, by leveraging the AI, you can be an absolute killer in your job rather than just doing it. And you also mentioned the high amount of working hours. So do you think and believe that current educational system fails in this direction?
Well, I'm not. I don't have the benefit or luxury like you to be every day now in such an environment. Ours was much more basic. I think the key job of the education system is to train you on judgment capability. Judgment capability in certain situations, finding the right structure, having the right structure in mind, calibrating different situations. And I think there has been a lot of progress over the past years. I cannot judge to what extent in your weekly curriculum AI already is embedded and plays a role, but I think that's already a total different nature than 2 or 3 years ago. I think education system has to focus on the very general capabilities. That includes, by the way, the entrepreneurial spirit, preparing you to take a certain risk, preparing you to do mistakes, correct them, adjust your model, and then be successful. For me, that's the key challenge for the next couple of years.
My name is Lucas Weigel from TUM, and my question is, are electric vehicles really the future, especially considering the depreciation, especially looking at what SIXT does, and furthermore, especially considering the battery degradation? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a total believer and fan of EVs, so for me that's going to be the future. I drive EV only since 4 years. And it's brilliant. I'm talking out of a privileged situation because I don't really have to care about the price of the car, and that's the key care point, of course, of a normal consumer. So I appreciate that point. But you will see technology jumps in the next 3 to 4 years, which will make it a total no-brainer that this is by far the better technology, by far the better car. And we need to still see some additional technology jumps in cost of the vehicle, but big progress on recycling of battery packs, on chargeability of battery packs. So for me, there's no debate. That's the future. It's just so much more efficient, so much more logical. And by the way, in 3 years, you're going to buy cars. You're going to be able to buy cars, even in a kind of upper mid-level segment where the range will be around 1,000 kilometers. So charging also is no problem. We are going through a pretty classical cycle, innovation cycle of big expectations, big hope, regulatory pressure, disappointments in daily life, but this is coming back, like the iPhone had the same cycle.
My name is Chintan Lee from TUM, and I have a question. Is you have your career period changing from consultant to the manager. In between, do you have ever made any kind of like conflict, difficulties, or any kind of problems just from in this transformations process, or have you changed your perspective to face the challenge? Thank you.
I'm sure I have done thousands of mistakes on that journey. And maybe one advice but I'm not kidding, thousands of mistakes when you're at the interfaces, and the stupid point is you only realize afterwards when you have been at the interface between maybe two job profiles, and then it's too late. So you do thousands of mistakes. And retrospectively, I would probably spend more time and energy on thinking about my model, my management model for certain situations. And that would have helped me to avoid some of them. But you do your best. You force yourself, and maybe already now, force yourself each week. What did you learn? What would you do different? What have you seen somebody else doing? And what's your conclusion out of that? And step by step, build that into your model. What I mean with your model is, I don't want to get too esoteric now, but your model of managing your life, because this whole thing is a marathon. You're very focused now on education and afterwards on your job. But that's a marathon. Life is very short. And I think the high art of managing your life is that pretty much, and that's a bit my ideal, my idea, is that every second you could push a pause button and look back. No major regrets. No major regrets. To say that you would do it exactly the same way again, I think is a very big source of satisfaction. So it's broader than just career, but for the job itself, I probably could have better in being more explicit in how my management model works. And to make it more concrete, I had a lot of situations where I over-trusted individuals. So you throw somebody in cold water, and this can get quite destructive. If the person doesn't have the right set of capabilities, you get a vicious cycle, and the person gets worse. So I'm sure I gave a hard time to people there. And that's something if you more proactively think about it, you can avoid. I hope it was not too abstract, but the point is, actually your model has to change and adapt each month, each quarter, because the role you're playing in your system is changing each month, each quarter. And instead of just letting it happen, sit yourself down and think about what's my model, Where can I improve? And especially get some feedback on that. I think that's one of the key sources, because we are very, each of us is driving a certain direction. And if you talk to people in your environment, like in a safe space, like such a group, people will have very quickly a very correct judgment of your profile, of your strengths, of your weaknesses. So without getting from one topic to the other, but to take feedback as a gift and not criticism, I think is one of the key recipes which you can activate.
Hello, my name is Shabnam Khosrawani, studying Master of Management and Digital Technology. First of all, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your precious experience with us. And then my question is about competitive advantages. What competitive advantages your firm you think you have, the firm you think you have, which make the company a pioneer in non-based US companies as a consultant firm?
Thank you. I think it's mainly 2 points. First one is agility. So in sync with we are also the only firm where the founder, by the way, is still alive. And we also celebrate that. Part of that is agility. We are a bit a smaller firm, so the partners know each other, and it's much easier to steer person to person than in abstract organizational units. The second point on competitive advantage, and I think that's where our European origin helps, is to accept diversity, different standpoints, accepting that the only way you can change a firm is to get accepted by the second, third, fourth layer of the organization, and not only by being an autistic, smart person, parachuting a brilliant report on a board table, but afterwards the management is left alone with the problem. I think that's our competitive edge.
Hello, I'm Angita Dewayani from TUM. Thank you for being here with us and sharing your experience. I want to ask, can you share with us your approach in balancing your short-term goals and your long-term vision in your professional journey? Thank you.
Very good one, because this topic drives me crazy on a no. Maybe one practical advice, and I'm still doing that each year. So at the end of each year, I really sit down. I try to take a day off. And it's a bit like, putting yourself, everybody is permanently busy. And as I'm always joking, to-do lists never get empty. We always have full to-do lists. It just depends on what level of granularity you spend or waste your time with. So the direction must be the right one. And what helps me, and I'm pulling myself out of the mud, I'm really trying to sit down each year thinking about what are my objectives for the next 5 years and for the next year. Private life, professional life, because this heavily depends. And then I'm seriously trying during what you would call kind of dead time. You're sitting in a train, you're driving a car, you're waiting for a delayed train, you're waiting for the next delayed train, especially in Germany, and so on. So wasted time. I normally try to reflect whether what I did this week, this month, today helps me and contributes to the midterm idea. I'm really writing this down, and I recently looked at my last 20 records I've put in writing for myself for the past 20 years, and I was satisfied about the direction. But the point is, don't just let it happen. I think that was for me one of the great discoveries in life, that you can shape each detail. You're the masters of pretty much everything you're in. If you make yourself aware and if you define where you want to be. There is, and one inspiration there for me is always professional sports people, as I said before. If you focus on something, the level of excellence you're gonna achieve is just so totally outstanding. Yeah? Whether it's car driving, whether it's football, we talked about push-ups. Yeah? World record in 1 hour of push-ups. So we have 3,600 seconds. World record in 1 hour of push-ups. Some of you do push-ups. I hope so. World record? Huh?
How many you do per day?
Yeah, first, but there was this other question. Okay, world record in 1 hour. No, world record in 1 hour is around 4,000, 3,800. So every second you do more than one, and 3,600 in a row. Try tonight. Okay. I said I do it each day. I manage 100. But if you focus. And by the way, the person it's an Australian guy who wanted to prove to his son that every person can be something special if you focus on something. Total normal person who just, okay, there may be more intelligent things than doing push-ups every day. But total normal person captured the world record in that. And for me, the point is, if you focus on something, you can totally shift the dimensions of what is feasible versus each of yours normally limited space of thinking. Sorry, was getting a bit distracted, but key point: don't just let it happen.
Hi, I'm Mark Honstein. I'm at TUM. And I have a quick question. In my very limited, admittedly, work experience, I've seen how many people also in lower down positions are sitting on treasuries full of data that could be used and analyzed and put into great insights. As a consultant and also as a leader in a consultancy firm, without trying to jeopardize your job, how can one empower these people to try their hand at trying to get some insights out of that data and improve their life at work?
Improve their life at work. For me, it's always a matter of the set of conclusions. Yeah? There's tons of data, and we can very quickly get lost in data. And now that AI is around, which is not only collecting data but generating data, it's just total exponential. So we're getting used that there's more data than we can make sense of. And very often we tend to get lost in exactly that situation. That's why my starting question is always, okay, where do we want to go? And then try to lay out the root cause and the attack points. And in the end, the data then helps me to prove or validate certain hypotheses. But at least in our job, the trick is to spend your time with asking the right questions in order to then get the data which helps you to answer. And I'm fully with you that, and this links a bit to the question before on AI. I think that we are just starting to see a revolutionary development. We have some processes that we optimize in companies with efficiency jumps. by factors of 100,000, 100,000 of how the job was done before and how the job is done after. But it's easy to get lost. So so always, where do I want to go? What is preventing me from the ideal state today? What are the root causes? And then we are attacking the root causes. I think that's the right way of looking at it.
Hello, my name is Ajaz Demir, and I want you to ask, you said you have changed your direction from client-oriented to employee-oriented. So how do you keep long-term partnerships with your clients?
It's totally linked. I know this may sound contradictory if you're in a service business around clients, that you switch from client-oriented to people-oriented. But what our clients love most about us is that we bring them smart people helping to solve their problem. And if you create the right environment for smart people, you're going to have the happiest client. So it's totally linked. No contradiction.
Hey, I'm Claudio. I'm glad you like EVs. So I'm the founder of a startup that focuses on energy management for electric vehicles using AI. And so I had two questions, or one and two, let's say. How do you best have startup collaboration working with consultancy companies? That would be one. And how do you best filter the information? You mentioned it's very important to you to have the best information, best analyses. How do you recommend to find the best sources?
Well, on your first one, so we try to engage heavily with exactly the startup environment because this is a key driver for the technology of the car of the future. And trying, it's not always easy because ideally you would enter kind of bit exclusive relationships, but then the situation is very different depending on the specific client and project you're working on. But we are trying to heavily be engaged in that area. And the second one, what we push our clients is that they think really from the customer need and drill everything from the customer need downward. So I think we all have to be careful that in this process of optimization and technological centricity that we don't lose out of sight of what the end consumer is really looking for. So that's how we are trying to align and prioritize within our clients the set of problems or priorities. What does this bring in the end for the consumer? Helps you? Thank you.
So it's Oday Shalain, Master's in Management student at TUM. So I have a question. As an international student, I sometimes have concerns with my friends about if we can work in consulting here in Germany with low proficiency in German language. So is it a problem or it's a must that we need the German language to work in consulting here? Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. This used to be the case 10 years ago, I would say. This has even been a total hurdle because a lot of your mid-sized company clients, they want to be served in German. This has changed quite a lot. So in our firm, there's basically no internal meeting taking place in German language because you now have like 20% of the consultant team not speaking German. Not only not being educated in German, but really not speaking German, and clients got very much adjusted to that. So basically 80-90% of projects is taking place in English language, also with the client. So very good development over the past couple of years, and this will be no hurdle going forward. Yeah.
All right, one last question.
So
perhaps.
your parents should feel safe. When I came back to my parents with the job idea of consultant, well, nobody in my family knew. They were all scared like hell because they expected this strange company to be bankrupt in the next 2 or 3 years. But it worked out well, so encourage you.
Hello, my name is Julia Dan, and I would like to know what's the number one concern of the businesses contacting you?
The number one concern of the clients approaching us? I would really say it's two. Two pretty much at equal level. The first one is what I mentioned a bit before, capital allocation. So everybody has limited funds. Is EV taking off? In what steps should I enter that segment? So especially in this phase of total technological revolution in quite a lot of areas, managers are really looking for advice and guidance. If you very honestly talk with them over a bottle of wine or a glass of beer or Coke or whatever in the evening, they would tell you that they on many of the technological developments are not sure, not safe. So they need guidance on that one. And the second one I would call target operating model. So once I know in what direction I want to move my products and revenues, what model do I apply? Processes, people, organizational structures in order to reach that objective as efficiently as possible. So those are the two big headaches in the minds of clients and managers these days. By the way, pressure for all of them doubled, tripled in the past couple of years. Pressure of failure and pressure of getting out of their job because capital allocations are much more tricky to make these days.
Thank you very much for the Q&A session.
Of course. Thank you.